2023, I read 115 books. What? Let's talk about which book was my favorite. Today, I'm coming to you with my 2 reading journals from 2023. One is my personal reading journal and the other is my book club reading journal. And we are going to complete the book brackets and superlatives in my book club reading journal and the book bracket in my personal reading journal to find out which books ended up being my favorite. I'm nervous about this. I don't know why this makes me nervous, just stating that this book is my favorite of the year, because I read a lot of good books and I hate to rank books over another one, but that's what I'm here to do. We're going to do the book bracket, so let's get to it. Let's start with my book club reading journal. Okay, so I've shown you a flip through of this journal in a previous video. And in this spread, Books Read, I'm documenting all the books that we read for the book club. So we had The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, The Perfect Marriage, The Midnight Library, Malibu Rising, Skin of the Sea, Carrie Soto is Back, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, All the Dangerous Things, Legends and Lattes, and You Make It Feel Like Christmas. So let's figure out which one of these is my favorite. So when I created this book bracket, I did not pit the preceding month against the following month. So I didn't do March and April, May and June. I switched it up. So I've got March pitted against December, May pitted against October, etc. So let's go ahead and fill this out. So the March book was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and that book is going up against You Make It Feel Like Christmas. The May book selection was The Midnight Library. The Midnight Library is going up against All the Dangerous Things. Then the July book was Skin of the Sea. Skin of the Sea? Yeah, Skin of the Sea. Skin of the Sea is going up against The Perfect Marriage. The September book is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And Addie LaRue is going up against Malibu Rising. The November book is Legends and Lattes. And Legends and Lattes is going up against Carrie Soto. All right. Okay, let's get down to business. Okay, so in the first bracket, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo versus You Make It Feel Like Christmas. This is easy because I loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It was such a well-written time jump, constant surprises, shocking moments. The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is it's a stunner. The ending threw me. I did not see it coming. And with You Make It Feel Like Christmas, I just read that in December, so just a couple weeks ago, just a week or so ago. And I just was not thrilled with it. And I hate that because I love Toni Shiloh's writing. She's a Christian author. But this book was it was slow paced and it was kind of dry. The second half of the book got very interesting. And I love the ending. But I just felt like it was dry. The first half of it was so dry. So that's an easy pick for me. The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo definitely wins in that matchup. Okay, now with the Midnight Library versus All the Dangerous Things, this is a little tricky because I liked both of these books for different reasons. The Midnight Library was very existential. made you think about your own life and the choices you've made in your life and what would have happened if you made some different choices. And then the downside to that book, though, was the main character, Nora, was annoying. Like nothing could please her in that novel. She had all these different choices in a life for her to pick, and she just never seemed to be satisfied. So I don't want to give away too much. It's still a very good book, but I was annoyed by the main character. All the Dangerous Things was a thriller that was fast paced, and I did not guess who done it until, you know, the author was pretty much revealing it. So I did not guess the who done it. It was a very good plot line and premise, and all the characters were interesting. So I think I'm going to pick All the Dangerous Things as my winner between these two books. Okay. The next lineup is Skin of the Sea versus The Perfect Marriage. I really did not enjoy The Perfect Marriage because I guessed who did it very early on, and I just thought that the plot was just, it wasn't as complex as it could have been. If there was another guilty party, the story would have been a lot more interesting. Like there was one point where I suspected someone else. Actually, at one point I had like 4 people on my whodunit list, but there was always a number one. There was always a number one. This is the person I think that did it. As I kept reading, I started thinking, okay, well, maybe it's this person. And if it had been that person, the plot would have been a lot more interesting. So I'm going to say that Skin of the Sea wins, even though Skin of the Sea was not a number one pick for me. The storyline could have been better. The writing could have been a little bit more descriptive. But between the two of these books, I'm going to say it was Skin of the Sea. Next is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue versus Malibu Rising. This is an easy one. I didn't care for The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I didn't like the demon in the story. I didn't like Addie as a character. She just seemed kind of vapid to me. And for her to have lived 230 something years, she didn't really use the powers that she had for very much good. I was not into The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue at all. But Malibu Rising was a good story, so I'm gonna choose that one. I actually love the characters in Malibu Rising, and it made me think about celebrities and their kids and how you really never know what's going on behind closed doors. Like you see them all dressed up and looking all shiny and happy, but what's really going on? What's really going down when you close the door, right? So I'm going to choose definitely Malibu Rising there. All right, and my last matchup is Legends and Lattes versus Carrie Soto is Back. And I will say that I'm going to choose Carrie Soto is Back because the story was more engaging, exciting. The way Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote the tennis matches made you feel like you were sitting there watching the tennis match. When I approached this book and I knew it was about a tennis player, I was like, this is going to be boring. I like to watch tennis, but I don't think I want to read a story about a tennis player. But I was wrong. Taylor Jenkins Reid can do no wrong. Okay, in my book, she can do no wrong, because when she wrote about these tennis matches, you were on the edge of your seats. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Legends and Lattes was a good, cozy fall read, but it just cannot compete with Carrie Soto. Like, the characters were cute, the storyline was cute. It's a cute little cozy little fantasy, not a bad book. But if you pit it against Carrie Soto is going to knock them out of the park. So Carrie Soto it is. All right, now in the semifinals, who is it going to be? Oh my gosh, Malibu Rising versus Carrie Soto. Okay, we're not going to deal with that yet. Okay, so in the first round, we have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo versus All the Dangerous Things and Skin of the Sea. So in this semifinal round, I'm going to definitely pick The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Just a stronger story, stronger characters, twists and turns I didn't see coming. So it's definitely The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I want to find a way to like shorten that title and just call it Evelyn Hugo, because that's a long title. Okay, this is tough, y'all. Oh man. Wow. Okay, in this semifinal round, it is Malibu Rising versus Carrie Soto. Oh. So, okay. And I know a lot of people didn't like Malibu Rising, but I really did. You know, you have to be a really savvy writer to write about an event that takes place in the course of 24 hours. Now, yeah, we did some time jumping back to kind of explain why some things were happening in present day, but the majority of the story takes place in a 24-hour period. And the Riva kids were so complicated and flawed and varied, and the love between them was something serious. At the same time, the story of Carrie Soto is such a powerful story about an older woman, you know, older in tennis years, an older woman coming back to really to prove herself to herself, but also learning some valuable lessons along the way. Learning, you know, about friendship and family and connectedness and your own personal value and worth. So that's a good book too. Man, okay. I think that between the two of these books, though, I really enjoyed reading Malibu Rising more. The characters, for some reason, just resonated with me more. Yeah, so I'm going to go with Malibu Rising. The writing, I mean, both of these are by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So, I mean, the writing is impeccable, in my opinion. But I think the story, the plot, the characters, I just enjoyed Malibu Rising a lot more. So that's going to be the winner in this round. Okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. Okay. All right, and here we are. It's Taylor Jenkins Reid versus Taylor Jenkins Reid in the finals. And this honestly is not a difficult choice, because I know for a fact that I enjoyed The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo way, way, way more than I enjoyed Malibu Rising. It was a tough choice here between these two, but this is not a tough choice. I know that The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo outmatches Malibu Rising hands down. So that's the winner for me for the book club pick, is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. All right, y'all, that is my winner for the book club. My favorite book club pick for 2023 is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That was our very first read of the year, because we didn't start our book club until March. So our very first pick was my favorite. I love that. All right, let's move on to the superlatives really quick. So the first book that we read was The Seven Husbands. I'm just going to put Evelyn Hugo here, just shorthand it. And then the book that took me the longest to finish, I want to say it is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, because I just wasn't into it. So I kind of took my time and read it. The most anticipated book of the year was Skin of the Sea. I'd heard so many reviews of it saying how awesome it was, so I couldn't wait to read that. The book I finished the fastest would be All the Dangerous Things. I think I read that in one day. It was really good. And it was a fast-paced story, and I really wanted to know who done it because I couldn't figure out who did it. So I just kept reading. All right, best main character has to be Evelyn Hugo for me. She was just a hot mess, but you love her anyway. The most surprising book. The most surprising. I think I'm going to go between Evelyn Hugo and All the Dangerous Things. I really didn't figure out who done it here, so that was surprising. But there were lots and lots of surprises in Evelyn, so I'm going to say Evelyn. There were probably about 4 or 5 surprises in there that I just did not see coming. Best page turner is All the Dangerous Things. Best thriller, All the Dangerous Things. Book I would not recommend. I would not recommend Addie LaRue. The longest book. I think the longest book is going to be Addie LaRue. The book I would recommend is Evelyn Hugo. If you haven't read it, you have to read it. It's so good. The shortest book I think is You Make It Feel Like Christmas. And the best dressed book or the prettiest cover. I'm going to go with Skin of the Sea has the most gorgeous cover. That's what roped me into that book. The reviews I heard and then the cover is so gorgeous. So I'm going to say that's the best cover, Skin of the Sea. And then the most disappointing book. I'm gonna say The Perfect Marriage. Because I really think it could have been so much more engaging if there was a different guilty party. Best bookish couple. Ooh, I'm gonna say the best bookish couple is Evelyn and Harry. And that's all I'm gonna say about that, because if you haven't read it, I don't want to spoil anything for you. Worst antagonist. I think that's gonna be what was his name from Addie LaRue? Let me look in my notes. Oh, Luke, short for Lucifer. Okay, I'm gonna say Luke. I just didn't like him. And I think it's not spelled like that. I think it's L-U-C. Luke is short for Lucifer, but I did not like that character. Okay, and then the last book I read was You Make It Feel Like Christmas. All right, y'all, that's my book bracket and my superlatives for my book club reading journal. Now let's get to my personal reading journal. Here we go. All right, so this is my personal reading journal with my personal to be read list in it. And if you've been following me for this journey throughout 2023, you know that I added my book bracket after I started this journal. So it ended up being in the back of my journal, kind of as an afterthought. Not even kind of, it was an afterthought. This was my first year completing a reading journal and even attempting a reading journal. So I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of winging it. And so I didn't think about having a battle of the books or a book bracket until I'd already started and my intro pages were already set up. So I didn't match these books up with subsequent months. So I didn't pit January against February, March against April. I just kind of skipped around once again. So let me go ahead and add in all of my books that were my top picks. And here is where I documented my top picks. It's in the front of my journal. All right, here's where I documented my top picks for each month. And this is going to be tough. I'm already looking at these books and this is going to be difficult. Oh my gosh. Okay. But here's where I documented all of my favorites for each month. All of these books were rated 5 stars for me. So let me go ahead and put these book titles into the bracket and then we'll pit them head to head against each other. Oh my word. OMG, y'all. Oh, I feel queasy. Oh my Lord, how am I gonna do this? Okay, let's just get to it. Okay. This is way more difficult than the first bracket because every one of these were 5 stars for me for different reasons. Okay. All right. So let's just get into it. All right. So the first lineup is between Yellow Wife and the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Okay. So I love historic fiction. Both of these are considered historic fiction. I love a strong protagonist. I love a strong female protagonist. Both of these have strong female protagonists. I love, and this may sound weird, but I just love what I love. I love novels about the period of our history in slavery and the South. I love it. I think it's because most of the books that I read that are about the period of history that includes slavery, it highlights how smart and how resilient Black people really are. Because we went through some stuff, y'all, and we still here. We are still here, and many of us are our ancestors' dreams come to life. Like, we are our ancestors' wildest dream. And all the things that they went through set the stage for us to be successful and for us to be creative. And so even though I loved, oh my gosh, I feel tears welling up in my eyes. Even though I loved the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I just don't think she can stand up next to Yellow Wife. Because to me, Yellow Wife was like, first of all, it's based on a real person who did some real things in history. So to me, it's a no-brainer. It's Yellow Wife. It's Yellow Wife. She's the winner here. The writing was impeccable. It's not just about the character. It's the writing was impeccable. The way she wove together the history of this time period, you know, using all the facts that she had at her disposal and then creating a novel around that. I mean, I love that. So it's going to be Yellow Wife for me between these two. Okay, Let's see. Next, we're going to do Queen Charlotte versus the Mermaid of Black Conch. And honestly, this is not a difficult choice because the Mermaid of Black Conch was amazing. Period, point blank. It was amazing. I talked about it in a previous book review video, that the Mermaid of Black Conch was about what would happen if men really on a fishing expedition found a half mermaid, half woman creature. What would they do? And this author has handled that so well, so flawlessly. She just really used her imagination and probably social commentary and came up with the most brilliant adult mermaid book. And although Queen Charlotte and the city I live in is named after her, this book was just not as impactful to me as The Mermaid of Black Conch. Queen Charlotte was a good read. It was an entertaining read, a good love story, also based on some history and some fact. But I just think in this case, The Mermaid of Black Conch is the winner. It just had a bigger impact on me. Some books that you read and you just can't get them out of your head. The Mermaid of Black Conch was just like that for me. Like, I read that book and I thought about it for weeks afterward. It just stuck in my head. Whenever I look through my reading journal, and I do like to look at it from time to time because it's, it's like artistic spreads that I've created. When I get to The Mermaid of Black Conch, I just stop and I just think about it because it was that good. It was that good. Okay. The next matchup is Babel versus Opal and Nev. And I've heard this pronounced Babel and Babel. I think the author pronounces it Babel. So that's what I'm going to go with. Babel versus Opal and Nev. Now, this is another difficult one. And the full title of this book is The Last Revival of Opal and Nev. Oh, boy. I loved both of these books. They're such different books. Like, how do you compare these two? Babel was very cerebral. Babel is about the origin of words. It's about language, linguistics. It's about magic. It's about using words to create realities. The Last Revival of Opal and Nev is about racism and music and artistry. The books are so different. How do you compare them? I think I'm going to go back to what I've said before in the book that had the most impact. Like, when I look at the cover or when I think about the book, which one had the greatest impact? Which one could I not stop thinking about? And that's going to be Babel. I couldn't stop talking about or thinking about Babel when I was reading it. I talked to my husband about Babel, I think, until he was blue in the face. Not me, but he was blue in the face. Just thinking about where words come from and how these students, once they figured out the true origins of certain words, they stopped using those words. Like, I think the origin of the word nice is actually stupid. Like, the original word for nice meant someone that was not smart. And so they took, if I remember correctly, no, it's been a while since I read that book, but it was something like that, where average words that we use on a daily basis, the origin of them is not what we think. I thought about that for the longest time. And then the social commentary and the racism that these students dealt with, and just the whole dark academia vibe. It was just, this book was delicious. It was well done. It was, like I said, cerebral. It was academic. I think that R.F. Kuang has written a classic that we'll be talking about 20, 30, 40 years from now. I really do. So I'm going to go with Babel. Okay. The next matchup is between 7 Days in June, and the Davenports. And while I loved the Davenports because of what they represent to the culture, this wealthy family during the Edwardian period in America, I mean, I love the Davenports. I hope that this author writes a sequel to this book because we hear so much about slavery and Jim Crow and the poverty that Black people had to overcome. It's rare that you see a book written about wealthy Black folks during the Edwardian. I don't think I've ever seen a book about it in the Edwardian period, or the what period is this? Edwardian, or like during the Gilded Age. During the Gilded Age, these same people were making moves, in the Gilded Age. So I love them. I love the Davenports, but 7 Days in June was a Black love story like none other. The characters, the banter between them, the plot, the subplots, the complexity of the characters, the flaws. That book, 7 Days in June, is the winner. If we're talking about impact, it's the winner. All right, the next matchup is between River Sing Me Home and Finding Me this is the autobiography of Viola Davis. Now, this is going to be tough. This is another one where, the books are so different that it's hard to choose between the two of them. River Sing Me Home is about a woman who was a slave in the Caribbean. Slavery ended, but then they went into this kind of like sharecropper system, which was not any better than slavery. And she said, you know what, I'm good on that. I'm out. And she escaped. She ran away and she began looking for her children who were taken from her during slavery. And her journey to find her children is it's like an epic adventure on the order of the Odyssey. And Homer. It is really that kind of epic adventure that she goes on. At the same time, Finding Me by Viola Davis, her autobiography, is so heart gripping. She grips you from the very first word, and she doesn't let you go until the last word. And her journey is also an epic one of how she discovered, of how she learned to love herself and how she discovered what it would take for her to make it in Hollywood. And she dropped some gems. And then just learning about the way she grew up in such poverty with rats and mice crawling on her face, just the not having utilities, not having food, going to school smelling like urine. She lived I feel like she's lived 1,000 lives. This is hard, y'all, because Viola Davis, I love her, and I love her bravery in telling her story, because there's so many people in this world who come from situations like that, and not just Black people, all types of people come from difficult situations like that, and they feel like there's no hope, but she's given people hope with her book. She gives people hope with the book that she's written. Oh, man. I really am struggling to figure out which one I want to choose, because I love them both for different reasons. I think I'm going to go with Finding Me, though. I think I'm going to go with Finding Me because Viola wrote something that is just seriously impactful. Okay. And then my last matchup is between When No One Is Watching and Royal Holiday. This is easy. I really enjoyed, let me spell it right. Put the N in there. So my final matchup is between When No One Is Watching that I read in October and Royal Holiday that I read in December. This is easy because Royal Holiday was a cute love story. It was a grown and sexy Christmas love story. It was very well written. I loved the fact that they were in London, and I felt like I was on a tour of London in this story. Just a heartwarming romance. But When No One Is Watching is about gentrification. And it's a thriller. So fantastic realism about what is really happening when our neighborhoods are gentrified. Who thinks of this stuff? Okay. The author of this book thought of it. What's her name? Who thinks of this stuff? Alyssa Cole thinks of this stuff. Alyssa Cole thinks of this stuff. She is a genius. I did not really understand what was going on, which is a good thing. If I figure out the plot early on, I am bored with the story. Or if it's so complicated that I never even wonder who done it, that's a problem. With her writing, I was on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what is going on in these neighborhoods. What took one? So I'm going to choose When No One Is Watching. Okay, now we get to the semifinal round. This is tough, y'all. All right, so the first round in the semifinals is Yellow Wife, The Mermaid of Black Conch, and Babel. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna choose I'm gonna choose Yellow Wife, y'all. I'm gonna choose Yellow Wife because it was just my type of historical fiction. Like Phoebe Dolores Brown. Phoebe Dolores Brown was a bad woman, okay? She sacrificed so much for her family and to be free. She went through so much. So the deal was, and this is a true story, this white man who owned a slave jail married a biracial woman. And he couldn't legally marry her, but she lived in his house and they had children together, and he bought her expensive dresses and, treated her like his wife. She still worked though, like out in the, there was a seamstress shop on his property where she still made dresses and things like that. But he treated her for all intents and purposes like his wife. And several other white men in this community also had biracial wives. They couldn't marry them legally, but they were their wives, okay? And the things that they had to endure to even survive these situations, I mean, it's mind-blowing. And then once they started having children, the threat was always there for this man to send your children into slavery. I mean, because he could. He definitely could, if he wanted to, send your kids right into slavery. It was just an awesome book. And I cannot wait to read more from her. So for that first round, I'm going to say Yellow Wife. And then in the second round in the semifinals, we've got 7 Days in June, Finding Me, and When No One Is Watching. And this is not that difficult of a decision because I really, really have never stopped thinking about 7 Days in June. Like ever since I read that book, it has had the same impact on me as Disappearing Acts did 20, 30 years ago. Like there are just some books that you just can't get out of your brain. And 7 Days in June is one of those books. So I'm going to say 7 Days in June. I'm going to write it this way. 7 Days in June is the winner in the semifinals. Okay. Now we're down to the nitty gritty. Okay. So I loved Phoebe Dolores Brown. I loved Eva and Shane in 7 Days in June. Their love story was just epic. Okay, epic love story. The banter between them, the plot, the characters, the subplots. Oh my gosh. This is a tough choice, y'all. This is a tough choice, but I think I'm going to go with I'm going to go with 7 Days in June. I'm going to go with 7 Days in June. 7 Days in June. Oh my gosh, I have tears in my eyes. 7 Days in June is my favorite book of 2023. Yeah, I feel good about that decision. I feel good about that because this love story right here, this love story right here is a love story for all times. A love story for all times. Just 7 Days in June. Y'all, this was hard. This was hard, but I feel good about my decision. I feel good about this bracket. I think I made the right choices. I don't think that I slighted anyone in this in this bracket. Yeah, so that's it for me, y'all. My favorite book out of 115 books that I read. Now that's saying something. That's saying something, okay? Out of 115 books that I read, 7 Days in June was my favorite. Let's take a look at the cover. If you haven't read it, what you waiting on, honey? Here is the cover. It is by Tia Williams. I read it in 6 days, all the way back in February. It has never left my mind. It has never left my mind. It's such a beautiful love story. And that's it, y'all. That's it for my book bracket for the year. I have one more video featuring this reading journal where I will do a final flip through. And I will show you all of my spreads. And from January through December, I'll show you all of my spreads and how everything turned out. That video should be coming up in the next week or so. But for now, I am so glad that I finished my book bracket. I feel good about my choice. If you have not read 7 Days in June or Yellow Wife, what are you waiting on? These books are amazing. Thank me later. Okay, thank me later. I think you will love them. If you enjoy historic fiction, I know a lot of people don't like historic fiction. I do. I love historical fiction. So if you love historical fiction or you're not afraid to dip your toes into it, I recommend Yellow Wife. If you love a good romance, it's not a sappy romance. It's not a little sappy romance, but it's a real gritty love story. You will love 7 Days in June. Real people, real situations, flawed characters, complex characters. You will love 7 Days in June. All right, thank you so much for joining me for this video, and thank you for joining me on this journey of creating and using this reading journal. This has been so much fun and so therapeutic and a little bit of escapism for me in 2023, and I'm looking forward to more of that in 2024. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, I hope you'll take a moment and hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified every time I post new content right here for you. I hope that you are already off to a great year of reading in 2024. Hope you've got some great books on your TBR. I hope that your year is full of love, joy, lots of books, and peace. See you next time.